Hello, beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, bringing you this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes. And I invite you to visit me at my website, illuminatingsouls.com, tomorrow when you're awake. But for now, it's time for you to rest. I want to start off by saying to you how grateful I am for our time together. Thank you so much for finding your way to this podcast and allowing me the opportunity to spend this time with you. I'm deeply grateful for you. And if you're enjoying the show and would like to support this podcast, I invite you to consider leaving a review, whether you listen on iTunes or Google Play or Spotify, or anywhere on social media. We are growing through word of mouth, and so anything you are guided to share will be a blessing. And this is episode number 47. It's amazing that we're here. And my heart is so full for this journey we are taking together. So as I'm recording this, it is Monday, late afternoon, and I'll publish this on Wednesday, and I will be honest, I've had a full day. It's been a wonderful day, but full nonetheless. I did an angel session and 2 mentoring sessions, and I taught a class, and it's windy outside. And yet here is where I want to be, here with you. And that's the thing about finding those avenues that bring us joy. We want to show up for them. And so even though I've had a full day, here is where I want to be in this moment with you. Because when we come together in the light, something magical happens. And I love magic. I'm all about magic. And so I don't know what kind of day you've had. I hope it's been good. But if it hasn't, I send you extra love. And no matter what kind of day you've had, you are worthy of a good night's rest. So I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in and get comfortable. And I'm going to bring in the angels, and then I'm going to tell you a story. And we'll be together for about an hour. And in this moment, I do not know where we're going to go, but that's part of the cool thing about channeling angels. I don't always need to know, because they do. It's one of my favorite ways to co-create. just dive right into the mystery and let it unfold. So I will join you in taking a nice deep breath in as we call ourselves forward into the heart of God. And beautiful angels on high, I rejoice in this moment for the opportunity to ask you to join us here. I already feel the flow of your light and your love coming to us now. I ask that you bring forward waves of love, of compassion, and of understanding in service to all of the beloveds that are hearing this message. Angels, we ask that you bring us even more grace, more serendipity, more magic as we continue on our path of light. And dear ones, just take a big, deep breath in and visualize or imagine it to be so that a beautiful column of golden light is descending around you. And this light is filled with divine love that has been calibrated just for you. It is flowing to you now to help you heal, to help you come into the joy of your own beingness. And with your permission, your angels are going to begin clearing and balancing your energy field. So we're going to start at the crown chakra. There's nothing you need to do. You can drift off at any time, just listening to the sound of my voice, knowing that you are wrapped in divine love. So the angels are starting at the top of your head or the crown chakra, and they're gently clearing your crown chakra to make it easier for you to connect with your divine guidance. They are also gently clearing away any old debris or any old beliefs that would have you perceiving that you are not allowed to connect directly with God. You, dear one, are born of the breath of God. And just take a breath in as the angels balance your crown chakra. And then the angels bring a blessing to your third eye so that you can see and sense more clearly. They gently bring the energy down to your throat chakra so that it is easier for you to connect with your authentic voice and your authentic truth. Just take a deep breath in. The angels now bring their energy to your heart chakra, and they simply ask you to receive love. Just feel the beauty of the love that is here for you, and allow your heart chakra to open and receive and replenish. Take another deep breath in and allow this energy now to come to your solar plexus, your third chakra, the place of personal power. And if there's anywhere you have sent away your power or given away your power, call it back now, filtered through the heart of God. Allowing your torso to relax and receive, grow strong and balanced. And now the angels bring beautiful healing light to your second chakra, balancing the feminine and masculine, divine energies in whatever way they align for you. This is a very creative energy center. And this will help you awaken to your unique you-ness, the you that you are, in a way that will bring you joy and love. And now the angels bring this energy to your root chakra, balancing it out so that you know that you are safe here on earth, that you are loved, that your needs will be met. And I pray this be true for you, true for us all. Just take a deep breath in, allowing this light to ripple down your legs, down to the tips of your toes, allowing your light body to receive the love of God. Take a deep, intentional breath in and let it out. You are doing so much better than you know. And in this moment, I am asking the angels what they want you to know. And they say, you are a beloved of this universe. And there is so much noise going on in this world that it's easy to forget who you are. But know this, that your life matters. Your life is a blessing in this world. There's music that travels through your heart that makes a difference in the symphony of life. To please believe in the preciousness of all that you are. To release yourself from the burden of feeling that somehow God or the universe is disappointed in you, because that could not be further from the truth. It is not easy to acclimate to an incarnation here in physical world reality. It takes a tremendous amount of courage, and your soul is mighty. And this incarnation is one that is bringing profound light into this realm. And that you have a team of angels and guides and the wisdom of your soul that are all here right now to support you. So take a deep breath in and rest into the love of God. The love of God is a sure thing. In this moment, God celebrates you. God is grateful for you. You just breathe and receive and allow yourself to replenish and restore. If you happen to still be awake, don't worry. We've got lots of time together. The angels and I are going to keep you company. We're going to help to cultivate a beautiful space of sanctuary for you. So come into the coziness of hearing a loving, friendly voice murmuring in the background. Right now I'm underneath my blanket fort as the wind blows outside. It's a blustery afternoon here. And I feel the waves of love pouring through for us all. The angels just love the idea of us all gathering together in our respective times and spaces. It's like a virtual slumber party, a virtual night around the campfire of life, where we get to share and be together. And so while you rest, I'm going to tell you a story. So as I mentioned earlier, this is episode 47. And, each episode I try to bring you something a little different. Some of them I share memories. Some of them I read to you. And I have spent a lot of time on Google Books looking for materials I can read to you. And the criteria is they have to have been published earlier than 1926, because anything written or published prior to 1926 is considered public domain. So I found a lot of cool stuff, and I love history in this way. And so one of the things that I'm going to explore with you tonight is a little booklet that was put together by the Kellogg's company about how they manufacture cereal. And this was written in 1916. What I find so interesting about this is I don't know if when you were younger, especially, because I don't know how many factory tours places do anymore. But when I was a kid, we used to go on factory tours. So you could go to Battle Creek, Michigan, and visit the Kellogg's factory. As a kid, it was a cool thing to do, to see how everything was made. And then you would get a goodie bag afterwards. So I thought that was cool. You would get to go to Kellogg's and then get a bunch of cereal afterwards, or crackers, or whatever we got. And our parents also took us to Hershey, Pennsylvania. And I think we may have gone to the Nestle factory. I don't know where that would have been, but, our parents were always looking for something interesting and semi-educational for us to do on our summer vacations. We were not the Disney family. We were the let's load up the car and go to see the 13 Colonies family. Which in hindsight is cool. At the time, I wished we were the Disney family. But now that I look back, I think it's kind of cool we got to go to the Kellogg's factory. So I'm going to share with you from this marketing booklet, this advertising booklet from Kellogg's. And recognize, please, that this was written in 1916. And gender roles were very entrenched. It's the time and space that it was. So we start off with some ads. The first is a picture of a rosy-cheeked young girl with a big pink bow in her hair. And it says, young folks with their fresh, unspoiled palates are the real judges of flavor. They enjoy the crispness and wonderful good taste of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes. And they are the ones who keep the imitations away from the table. I like that. Unspoiled palates versus being incredibly picky eaters, which is really the truth. The next ad, again, another girl, a different girl, again with bright rosy cheeks and a pink ribbon. This is for something called Drinket, Drinket. I have no idea what it is, but it says, Drinket is a beverage with all the palate-satisfying qualities of coffee, in which every member of the family, including the children, can drink freely at all times. It is particularly invigorating on a cold day and a delicious iced drink during hot weather. Okay, and I will report to you that I did do a quick Google search to see if I could figure out what this was made of, and I did not find out, so we'll just keep going. So this booklet is called A Little Journey to the Home of Kellogg's Toasted Cornflakes, which is also the home of other good things to eat, and they are in Battle Creek, Michigan. We start off with a photograph of the front of their factory, their building, and the header says, a vine-wreathed office entrance at Kellogg's. As a visitor to the home of Kellogg's Toasted Cornflakes, Mrs. Evans saw first of all the main office. And at this point, we don't know who Mrs. Evans is. So you haven't missed anything if you don't know who she is yet. I don't know either. But she did see the first of all the main office. In front of her stretched a double row of desks equipped with telephones and typewriters. Some of the employees were opening letters that might have been used for a collection of American postmarks, containing orders for hundreds, thousands of boxes of Kellogg's Toasted Cornflakes. In the traffic department, she learned that 20 cars of Kellogg's Toasted Cornflakes would be sent out that night. One car was going to her own town. Now I know why my grocer is never out of Kellogg's, she thought. No matter how many packages he sells, this smooth, splendid system keeps him supplied. I'm laughing because I'm just sure that's what she said. This smooth, splendid system keeps him supplied. That sounds just like how someone would talk. Sorry, I'm punchy. It's the end of the day. Before leaving the office, she looked at the picture of the one-story house where the Kellogg Toasted Cornflake business was started. Okay, so this is clearly branding the whole string Kellogg Toasted Cornflakes. If it's okay with you guys, I'm just going to say the cornflakes because this will turn into a tongue twister and it will not look pretty if I keep reading that way. Okay, so we're just going to call it the cornflakes, but they are Kellogg's, just so you know. Okay. One man, this visitor learned, stands behind the unvarying excellence and the phenomenal popularity of Kellogg's cornflakes. He is W.K. Kellogg, whose signature, which appears on every package of the products of the Kellogg Cornflake Company, is known to probably every housewife in the land. Mrs. Evans thoroughly approved of the Kellogg square deal policy, which her grocer had explained to her. But the thing that most appealed to her in the Kellogg plan, as she watched it working through the various processes, was simply the painstaking attention to detail in the midst of an incredible volume of business. And she found that even when the daily maximum of toasted cornflakes is being manufactured, maximum care follows every grain through its cleaning, flavoring, cooking, flaking, and toasting. That's why Kellogg's cornflakes always come to you the same. That only the best materials are used at Kellogg's was evident to Mrs. Evans when she visited the fully equipped factory. Mrs. Evans must be very astute. She didn't pretend to follow the analytical tests, but she did understand that samples of each shipment of corn are examined so cleverly that the Sherlock Holmes who watches is able to tell if they are up to the Kellogg requirements. Even the coal employed in the Kellogg plant is tested, and the paper used for making the strong sanitary containers for cornflakes. And because she had gone rather carefully into the question of a balanced diet at her club, Mrs. Evans was delighted to see the delicate apparatus for discovering the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates in the various Kellogg products. She also learned that when served with milk, Kellogg's cornflakes is a perfectly balanced food, one reason why it satisfies so well the natural appetite of children. As she rested a moment in the visitors' waiting room, Mrs. Evans noted that many different types of persons were visiting Kellogg's. "I understand that the women workers here are remarkably well off," one young woman said to her companion. This chance remark, yes, very chance that happened. This chance remark. I hope you guys can put up with my punchiness right now. This chance remark set Mrs. Evans to wondering about an element in the production of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes, which she hadn't heretofore considered the human element. Like most sympathetic and intelligent women of today, she was keenly interested in the condition of the women workers. Members of the Consumers League had lectured before her club, and she knew how splendidly some big corporations were developing the so-called welfare work. She suddenly resolved to find out, before leaving Kellogg's, what were the conditions and the hours of labor of the girls and the arrangements for their comfort. Owing to her unusual interest in welfare work, Mrs. Evans was invited to see the restroom for the women workers. She had seen such rooms in telephone and life insurance buildings, but she had never beheld a pleasanter lounging place than that provided for the girls at Kellogg's. Down either side of it and in the middle extended long cretonne-covered couches, roomy enough for a dozen girls to stretch out comfortably on each, and heaped with gay pillows. There were white painted rocking chairs and deep, roomier ones of wicker. The latest weekly and monthly magazines loaded a white wicker table, and other periodicals filled a white painted bookcase, on top of which was a set of pot of growing ferns. Walls, ceilings, and curtains were freshly snowily white. A full hour is allowed for dinner, and after the meal is eaten, this room is invaded by the young women who recline on the roomy couches and enjoy their rest. Like every intelligent modern housewife, Mrs. Evans appreciates cleanliness. This hygienic condition was shown to her in the Kellogg buildings, every one of which is constructed of reinforced concrete, but probably nothing so sharpened the impression of sanitary perfection as her vision of the huge laundry. Although even in the packing room the food is not touched by human fingers, but only by machinery, there is nevertheless a rule that all men and women working in that room must wear white caps and uniforms. The wearing of street clothing in the factory is forbidden. A third rule says that uniforms must be changed at least twice a week, and more often if necessary. And the very simplest method of enforcing these rules has been selected. All uniforms are laundered free. Thus, with no extra tax upon the pocketbook or the private time of the worker, there is no excuse for soiled uniforms. Shower baths are among the many appointments. Hungry persons cannot do efficient work. Mrs. Evans was perfectly familiar with the axiom, but she never dreamed that Kellogg set its own dining table for its men and women employees. On the roof of the building, which contains the packing rooms, is a deep, wide, brightly lighted dining room where the white-capped, white-uniformed girls sit down every day to a good, hearty dinner furnished them absolutely free. The men workers are served with dinner at cost, which careful kitchen economics have reduced to 15 cents per man per meal. The food is substantial in quantity and good quality and variety. No soggy, cold lunches for the thousands of workers who help to provide the world with one of its most delicious foods, Kellogg's toasted cornflakes. And besides, these men and women receive for only 8 and 9 hours of work the same wages as other food concerns pay for 12 full hours. And before we continue, I bring you this brief interlude. So, I started recording this episode on Monday afternoon after a bright, beautiful day of sessions and classes. And I wasn't able to finish the recording, so now it is the next morning. It is early. There's a bird singing its morning song outside. And so we're going to continue, but I did want to let you know that it is a different day because no matter what I do, it seems as if the ambient sound shifts if I pick up recording at another time of day. So I just wanted to let you know. So we're coming back to Kellogg's and the mysterious Mrs. Evans, who I don't know who she is, but perhaps in 1916, there was a reference point for her. I don't know, but we are seeing Kellogg's through her eyes. And we are learning that Kellogg's does its best to provide good working conditions for their employees, including lunches and restrooms, not just bathrooms as we would call them here in the U.S., but lounge areas for their work people. So we're going to continue. This is the corn's sweetheart, Mrs. Evans was told, and a round, white, hard ball, the size of a piece of small shot, was shown to her. It was the concentrated goodness and sweetness of a kernel of southern white corn minus its outer covering. Now she saw a long room lined with what appeared to be huge safes. These were the cookers, 52 of them, which are in operation 24 hours of every day. The recipe for cooking Kellogg's toasted cornflakes is simple, with a mystery underneath. Over each 10 quarts of grits is poured 1 gallon of liquid flavoring, the composition of which is Kellogg's trade secret. In this brew, the sweethearts of corn steam for 3 hours until they have absorbed the flavor. The many imitations of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes, the original, have never been able to imitate this delicious flavor. That's why many times more Kellogg's is sold than all of the imitations combined. Kellogg's won its flavor through its flavor, and the wise woman nods her head and says, of course. She is aware that the sauce or the seasoning is what transforms meats, fish, and pudding into cooking triumphs. Naturally, Mrs. Evans was immensely interested in the department where the flavoring for Kellogg's toasted cornflakes was prepared. She saw the big tank where the liquid sweetness was brewed. After this toothsome flavoring has thoroughly saturated the pans of white grits in the cookers, what happens? Mrs. Evans inquired. I'm just laughing because toothsome, that is not a word we would use these days, is it? And I don't think anybody would ever speak that way. So just imagine this is a real conversation and you're giving me a tour of how you make your amazing product. What I really say, after this toothsome flavoring has thoroughly saturated the pans of white grits in the cookers, what happens? I don't know why I find that so humorous right now. It's the morning, and I think I am still punchy from yesterday. But that's all good, right? Hopefully this is boring enough that you are perhaps even asleep by now. And if you're not, perhaps you're amused as I am. She was immediately taken to see the shakers. The individual tray of cooked corn is emptied into a shaker, which separates each moist kernel from its neighbor and finally tosses all the kernels into the dryer like an air shaft 4 stories deep. In this shaft, the corn is blown back and forth by hot and cold currents of air for 8 hours. During her journey through the home of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes, Mrs. Evans caught herself wondering occasionally where the flakes were. She saw the snow-white corn changed by the flavoring into bits of golden yellow. How, she marveled, could these nuggets be changed into crispy, tasty flakes? She found out in the mill room. The grits are ironed out by a 20-ton pressure of hard iron rolls into flakes 2 and 3 inches long. Cold water must be passed constantly through the cores of these mighty rollers, each weighs over a ton, in order to keep them from cracking. Her head rocking with the roar and whir for 24 hours of these giant millers are working all the time in this one room. Mrs. Evans nevertheless watched, fascinated, the evolution of the flakes. This is brilliant writing. I think this could have been fun to write. Could you imagine sitting down and this was your job? To write this brochure and bring personality to Kellogg's toasted cornflakes and our Mrs. Evans? She's fascinated. We're fascinated too, so we will continue. They clung to the surface of the roll until a sharp knife scraped them off into the conveyors leading into the ovens. An oven as high as a large house, an oven in which a human ladder of 8 tall women might stand erect. I'm sorry. At what point in their writing did they decide that was the metaphor? A human ladder of 8 tall women might stand erect, an oven the length of a hotel ballroom. That is the sort of oven which was displayed to Mrs. Evans at Kellogg's. In fact, she saw 7 ovens, 4 of which exclusively used for cornflakes, toast over 300,000 packages daily. The toasting in the ovens was a sort of new to Mrs. Evans. Never for a moment did the flakes remain still. Through an open door they were dropping constantly from one shallow pan to another of the tier that lined the oven. Across each pan sped a metal belt, sweeping the flakes with it. A more delicate shade of golden brown was imparted to them each time they skimmed down the length of the oven. Each little crispy flake had to cross the oven 10 times before its journey and complexion were finished. Have you ever thought of a cornflake as having a complexion? They are definitely talking to the women here. Crumbles was a favorite dish on Mrs. Evans' table. Therefore, she was eager to see how this food was prepared. I told you I'm punchy this morning. It's going to be a really good day. I don't know what crumbles are, and I'm not inclined to go look it up, but we'll just we'll just pretend that we know. Okay, deep breath. For me, you too, if you want to. Okay. After observing the various cleansing processes, she decided that the finished Kellogg's products must be the most immaculate of foods. From the cars, she learned that the wheat is passed over the receiving separator, and the straws, sticks, chaff. In fact, the major proportion of foreign substances are removed before the wheat enters the Kellogg storage bins. As soon as it is wanted for use, it is poured into the oat separator, where each wheat berry or grain slips snugly into the tiny slot prepared for it, while larger intruders such as oat grains are brushed off and away. I want to meet this writer. I want to read their other works. I want to read, I want to read anything they write. Thirdly, the wheat goes through the milling separator where dust, shrunken grains, grass seed, and other substances smaller than the perfect wheat berry are swept into the discard, and still the purifying pilgrimage of the wheat is only half over. Mrs. Evans next watched the cleansing of the outside coating of each grain. And the scourer pictured below, and there is a picture below, which I will not describe to you because I will not do it justice. One upright cylinder encloses another, which revolving swiftly scours the dust from each individual kernel. Next, the wheat shoots into the washer, where it is mixed with water in a trough. Is it a trough or trough? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. This word showed up in something I read the other day, and I realized I think I said it wrong. Just pretend that I'm saying it right. And then swashed about by two paddle wheels, very much as clothes are paddled in the washing machine of the laundry. Dust and moisture escape through perforations in the tub or cylinder, too small to let wheat grains pass. The latter are quite dry by the time they have been whisked about in the second of two cylinders, and then follows 12 hours of tempering in huge bins. The final purifying process, Mrs. Evans wonders if the wheat will ever become clean enough to suit Kellogg's. Mrs. Evans sounds very concerned. So she wondered if the wheat would ever become clean enough to suit Kellogg's. Removes the woody hull, and at last the wheat is ready to be made into crumbles. Oh, they did it. They really did it. Maybe now they'll tell us what crumbles are. Nope, they're not telling us. Maybe I'll go look it up. We'll see. So let's get going. The Kellogg Toasted Cornflake Company was started in 1906 in a one-story building. The photograph below, taken only 9 years afterward, shows that the Kellogg plant had grown to nearly 10 acres of floor space. In addition, branch offices are maintained in 20 of the leading cities, from which points the Kellogg salesmen keep in close touch with the many distributors of the various Kellogg products. Here is absolute evidence that something new and meritorious, produced at a price within the reach of all, will not only be favorably received by the American people, but they will also protect the original article by refusing to accept imitations, many of which are very cheaply prepared. In the Kellogg library are the cartons of over 150 brands of imitation toasted cornflakes, which have at different times tried to divert business created by the quality of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes. In all the history of successes in this country, there has never been a food product that won so many friends so quickly and held them so continuously as Kellogg's toasted cornflakes. Although hundreds of thousands of men and women eat the cornflakes, and I'm not going to say the whole name, it gets long, the majority of mornings of the year, the credit for the real success of Kellogg's is given to the millions of children all over this great land who ask for and eat Kellogg's toasted cornflakes for no other reason than the satisfaction it gives them. And these children become parents, and remembering how they enjoyed the Kellogg's toasted cornflakes, they do not forget to give that pleasure to their own children. Kellogg's won its flavor through its flavor, and that flavor is the best sweethearts of the corn, will always be the standards for making Kellogg's toasted cornflakes. Oh, wait, we're back to Kellogg's Crumbles, so that must have been their commercial. So we'll come back to Crumbles. Okay. You know what? Should I go and see if I can find out what Kellogg's Crumbles were? Hang on, let me check. Okay, I looked it up. I couldn't stand not knowing. It was a shredded wheat cereal that was discontinued in 1973. So that's what our beloved Crumbles are. So, Kellogg's Crumbles, all the wheat ready to eat, needs no sugar or but the merest sprinkle for the person with a very sweet tooth. The successive stages from wheat to crumbles are very interesting. The first important thing accomplished is the retention of the bran coat, which is tucked around each grain of wheat. This bran is rich in phosphates and mineral salts, the things that doctors say all children need. Kellogg's, with its modern machinery, known also the value of some of the old, and keeps the bran in its wheat products by grinding with the old-fashioned method. The wholesomely coarse flour which comes out of these grinders is made into stiff dough, and then the dough is dropped into the loafing machine, which rolls the shapeless mass of dough into long, smooth cakes. Then, in shallow steel pans, these loaves go into huge steam ovens and are steam-baked for an hour and a half. And I thought I would bring this aside in. If you haven't ever watched any of the documentaries about Kellogg's, they really started off as a health food. One of the Kellogg's brothers, I think it was, felt that or discovered that eating bran cereal or very dense granola helped people's health. So, it makes sense that this is what they're making. When the crumble loaf comes out of the oven, it is left to cool for 24 hours, at the end of which time it is broken up into particles no bigger than the head of a pin. The crumbling machine next attracted Mrs. Evans. Oh, good, I'm glad she's back. Okay. It was explained to her that each particle of wheat slips into a groove over which works a metal tongue and comes out as shreds 4 or 5 feet long, which a small, sharp knife scrapes from the metal into a wide, smooth runway leading to the ovens. There, these shreds travel back and forth on smoothly running belts, winning a more golden tint on each lap. There is a special Crumbles oven which cost $10,000 and is the biggest oven in the world. Its height is that of a 5-story house. I'm sorry, I was going to be snarky and say, and how many very tall women would that take to measure up to a 5-story house? At the end of the toasting process, the shreds again are broken into small pieces and Crumbles is ready for Kellogg's wax-tight packaging. No hand touches Kellogg's toasted cornflakes or Kellogg's Crumbles while they are being packed, although all of the workers must conform to the strictest rules of cleanliness. Nevertheless, every single detail of the process of packaging the W.K. Kellogg foods is performed by machinery. In one of the big, light packing rooms, far more tidily and swiftly than the deftest pair of human hands could contrive, Mrs. Evans watched a machine fold and glue a bag of plain paper and deposit it as a lining in the carton, which it neatly fitted. After the other mechanical devices of almost human intelligence had weighed out and measured into the carton the precise portion of toasted cornflakes or crumbles needed, a machine folded the paper lining and closed and sealed the top flap. The majority of these operations are completed in less than 2 seconds. More than 300,000 packages are sent out of the packing rooms daily. Ever since the high cost of living became an issue, Mrs. Evans had waged warfare against short measure. Buying a pair of scales for use in her own kitchen to check up on her purchases, she soon observed that there was never any underweight in the packages of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes or Kellogg's crumbles. She noted, too, that out of each package might be measured the same number of servings. So Mrs. Evans is a shrewd consumer. She's measuring things when she brings them home. I'm fascinated by her. I wonder if she really existed. The reason for this uniform weight was made clear to her. In the enormous packing room, she watched in operation the specially constructed weighing and filling machines for protecting this important feature of square deal to every customer. Every package is weighed by accurately adjusted machinery. The products slide into the carton, are shaken down systematically, and the weight recorded on an automatic register. Many packages are being weighed simultaneously on the different weighing machines in this very busy room. You know what's so interesting about this is sort of the beginning of the industrial age, right? In this way of manufactured food. This kind of mass production of consistent food products is relatively new at this time. I think it really started in the late 1800s, so that every box is uniform, every box weighs the same, every box of the cornflakes will taste the same whether you eat them in Nebraska or in New York in March or in December. This was relatively new in terms of packaged goods, of food. So I can appreciate why they're bringing these certain perspectives forward, because it was relatively new. We wouldn't even think now about double checking that our box of cereal has the amount it says on the package. We take for granted that that's what we're getting. So I don't know. I find this interesting. In the personal experience of Mrs. Evans, no food, or W.K. Kellogg's, had ever appeared the worse for wear, had ever proved to be affected by heat, cold, moisture, or insect life. She knew, of course, that what preserves Kellogg's toasted cornflakes and crumbles for an almost indefinite period of time is the thick, smooth, impenetrable envelope of paraffin or waxed paper known as the wax-tight package. As is the case with every other operation in the packing room, this envelope is adjusted by an ingenious machine. As fast as sealed cartons can be fed into this machine, it reaches down and strips off a sheet of waxed paper from its heavy roll, folds it neatly about the carton, and holds the loose ends of the paper between two hot plates till the melted wax becomes a seal. To keep the Kellogg packages wax tight while using, cut the wax paper evenly all around, and you can replace the top until the package is empty. And then they have a picture. So what they're referring to is, if you can imagine a box of cereal, we're used to the packaging being inside the box. You know, the contents, there's a plastic bag that is sealed. Well, in this day and age, the product would go directly into the box, and then on the exterior of the box was this wax paper, wax tight container, so that the wax paper was on the outside of the cereal box, whereas now we have it on the inside. People are so constant to Kellogg's that in order not to slight any of the intricate processes of preparation, the plant runs night and day, and during the greater part of the year employs 3 shifts of workers every 24 hours. In her mind's eye, Mrs. Evans saw a long line pointed towards Kellogg's from every city, town, and village in America. Her thoughts were not far astray, as there are few places in the United States so small that they do not contain some of the consumers of Kellogg's foods. And the bigger the town, the larger its proportion of the millions of people who breakfast on Kellogg's toasted cornflakes. To speed their foods to these loyal customers, Kellogg's operate a case sealer which automatically seals up cases and discharges them into the waiting freight cars. Every minute from 7 to 10 of these cases start on their way east, west, north, and south. As she followed the sweetheart of the corn through the factory, where the cookers are like the vaults of some huge bank, and the ovens are as big as houses, and 24 hours is too short a day, Mrs. Evans began to realize that when buying a package of Kellogg's toasted cornflakes, retailing at the small price of 10 cents, but very few people stopped to think of the patience, energy, and responsibility behind the package. 36 miles of paper are used every day to make the fiber cases in which the foods are sent from the factory. 3 sheets of this paper, which is waterproof, are pasted and pressed together in a tremendously powerful machine and emerge as tough solid board. This in turn is passed through a 2-color printing press, and after being automatically shaped by another machine, is ready for the cartons. Only one of Kellogg's little jobs, but it is measured in miles, tons, and millions. Not cleanliness alone, but surgical cleanliness is a law very strictly enforced at Kellogg's. Like any other modern woman, she was glad to see that the Kellogg employees measured up to the standards of tidiness which she set for the workers in her own home. It was explained to her, however, that the Kellogg standard was even stricter than her own. When she sought a girl for general housework, she didn't test the blood pressure of her applicants, nor did she take precautionary measures to ascertain their physical condition. To the contrary, every person concerned in the preparation of the various Kellogg's foods is required to submit to a searching medical examination by the company's physician before being employed. All employees are re-examined once a month in a scientifically equipped room where any worker with the slightest illness or injury must report at once. In this strict fashion is the purity of Kellogg's food ensured. Everyone seems not just contented but happy. That was one of Mrs. Evans' sudden reflections as she passed through one department after another. The girls and men were working busily, yet they seemed to be very cheerful. She knew why before she left Kellogg's. One of the unwritten but unchangeable laws of that establishment is contained in the familiar formula which warns against all work and no play. And to help that spirit along, the employees have the use of an unusually beautiful auditorium. In it, lectures for visitors and entertainments, dinners, dances, and masked balls for the employees are given. Here also are held the meetings of the Kellogg Social and Relief Association, of which the dual object is to promote a spirit of good fellowship and social intercourse among the members, and to be of assistance to members during times of sickness and distress. It's interesting, if you heard any of the earlier episodes I did about Marshall Fields and Company, which was a department store in Chicago, how they also had a lot of resources for their employees, including a hospital and auditoriums and libraries. And so it seems as if the corporations were trying to make conditions good for their employees back then. I don't know how the employees felt about it, but I find that fascinating. So this seems like a good place to leave off our journey with Mrs. Evans. I want to know more about her. I'll go anywhere Mrs. Evans goes. And our Kellogg's. And the culture around manufactured food in the early 1900s. So thank you for letting me share this nostalgia with you. I hope you are asleep, and if you are not, there's another episode right around the corner for you. I wish you sweet dreams. I wish you a good rest. I wish you blessings of light. I am so deeply grateful for you. You are a treasure in this world. And the world is better because you are here. Thank you. I look forward to connecting again soon. Blessings to you.